From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. At least 25 people have died and more than 300 have been injured after the Volcano Fuego, or volcano of fire, erupted in Guatemala. Authorities say that a total of 1.7 million people have been affected by the eruption, and at least 3,100 people have been evacuated. The village of El Rodeo was buried by a river of lava. The head of the National Coordinator for Disaster Reduction said security workers couldn't reach some villages because it was too dangerous. The eruption also forced the international airport in Guatemala City to suspend all its flights because of the amount of ash on its runway. President Jimmy Morales is considering declaring a state of emergency in the most affected areas.
We will consider the need to call for a state of emergency. We have to see, according to our legislation, what help this might bring us. So far, we think that a state of calamity could be declared in at least 3 departments.
The panorama was very good in the morning, and in the afternoon only a bit of ash and sand was falling. We did not feel this meant we had to evacuate people until we had the problem with pyroclastic flow.
The eruption spewed an 8-kilometer-long stream of red-hot lava and belched a thick plume of black smoke and ash that fell in the capital and other regions in the country. Rescue operations were suspended on Sunday night due to low light and dangerous conditions, but resumed this Monday morning. Civil defense workers are relocating evacuees in shelters.
A great flow of lava came from the top of the volcano. The only thing we could do was to run and leave all our belongings in the house. Now that the danger has passed, I came back to see what's left of our house. Everything's destroyed. What can we do when such a disaster is a manifestation of God?
We were on the top of the roof, calling for help and calling the National Coordinator for Disaster Reduction. There were 8 people on the roof of the house. They had burns on their bodies. A few meters further on, there were also 18 other people with burns and affected by the eruption of the volcano, but they were still alive.
The remains of the young Guatemalan migrant murdered by the United States Border Patrol have been returned to her family in the municipality of San Juan Ostuncalco. Locals came out to support the family and show solidarity.
The Mayan people expressed their condolences to the family members of Claudia Gomez Gonzalez, the 20-year-old killed by the U.S. Border Patrol on May 23rd.
I have never seen so much support. Before the ceremony, and even with the rain, the people were on the street waiting for his sister, ma'am.
Claudia Gomez was shot in the head when she tried to cross the U.S. border with another group of migrants.
She was a 20-year-old young woman. Her dream was to move to the United States and get a job, but unfortunately, she was murdered.
Local people agree that the murder of Claudia has unveiled multiple crimes that occur at the U.S. border, mostly against poor people.
United States citizens need to understand that we're not migrating to steal their jobs. The U.S. government, companies, and foreign policies make us migrate. They make us leave our cultures and our families behind.
Residents here are trying to send a message to the government, hoping that they have a conscience about this crime.
This message is directed to the President of the United States. What do you think about this murder that happened in Guatemala?
There has not been any statement of the government. There has been no condolences from President Jimmy Morales to Claudia's family.
The Mayan people, social organizations, religious groups, and local journalists were present at the funeral. There was no sign of any state representative.
3 more social leaders and 1 former FARC member were murdered in Colombia over the weekend. Communities are urging the authorities to put an end to this wave of violence against social leaders. They say the state does not invest enough resources to protect them. According to the Somos Defensores program, after the signing of the peace accords, there has been a sharp rise in the killing of social leaders in Colombia. In 2014, there were 55 murders of social leaders. The number climbed to 106 in 2017, and the trend has continued in 2018. Our correspondent in Bogotá, José Manuel Jiménez, brings us more.
Numerous social leaders have been killed in the last hours. Also, a former member of the FARC in the department of Córdoba, Orlando Negret, who was president of the El Camur Community Board in Tierra Alta, Córdoba, was killed. Julio César Montalvo, brother of the indigenous governor in Córdoba, was also murdered. In Antioquia, Fradi Estivar Chica, former FARC fighter, was killed. Carlos Jimmy Prado, human rights activist and national delegate for the Afro-Colombian Raizal, Black, and Palenquero communities in their popular consults in Nariño, was also killed. Those are the most recent murders of social leaders in Colombia in the last hours. But these killings add to last Monday's murders when 3 indigenous leaders were assassinated in the department of Valle del Cauca. On Wednesday, a professor was killed in the same department. Del Mayo Reyes was a math teacher but also worked with young people to prevent the use of drugs. These regrettable murders take place in the midst of a second round of presidential elections. According to social leaders and investigators, these murders are aimed at sowing fear in the regions, so that on election day the communities will be scared to vote.
That was José Manuel Jiménez from Bogotá. And we continue in Colombia, where the FARC leader Jesus Santrich has been moved back to La Picota prison in the south of the capital, Bogotá. Santrich had been at the Colombian bishop's headquarters since May 10, where he was moved following his hunger strike for humanitarian reasons. Now that the FARC leader is in good health, he is returning to the prison complex until his judicial situation is solved. Santrich was accused of drug trafficking by the United States. At least 130 people have been arrested during an anti-drug operation in the southern Colombian region of Naya. During the first month of the Atalanta military operation, 6 tons of cocaine and 11 of marijuana were also seized. 21 vehicles were seized and 10 labs for processing coca leaves were discovered, according to the Colombian Army. The operation has been carried out in the southern departments of Cauca and Valle del Cauca. The area formerly dominated by the FARC is now disputed by rival drug gangs. And Colombia's Ituango hydroelectric project is still on high alert. Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos met his cabinet over the weekend to analyze the emergency situation. A commission of experts has warned that the risks at the dam are increasing. The overflow of the Cauca River caused by the project has already forced 25,000 people to be evacuated, and a population of 130,000 residents is at risk if the dam collapses. In Venezuela, the president of the Constituent Assembly, Delcy Rodriguez, held a meeting with members of the Truth Commission to discuss the framework for the national dialogue. Rodriguez said that the commission accepted the invitation of President Nicolás Maduro to join proposed talks with the opposition and call for democratic solutions to end violence, actions, and intervention in Venezuela.
There is room for political differences, but this must be democratic and respectful. We can only reconcile ourselves through political and social dialogue. On behalf of the Truth Commission, we hope you will replicate this message of peace to the Venezuelan people, who want to stop violence, intolerance, and conspiracies.
The United States has said it will maintain its sanctions against Venezuela in spite of the government's call for dialogue and the release of a number of imprisoned opposition figures. The European Union has also said it is considering further measures. The Venezuelan economy is under siege, but the Venezuelan people are becoming more creative in confronting this, as Ian Bruce reports.
The financial noose tightens on Venezuela and its oil industry. Following the election, President Trump added a ban on buying Venezuelan debt and collateral assets.
The United States will continue to use the full range of economic and diplomatic tools to prevent the Maduro regime's destruction of Venezuela's democracy and prosperity.
The sanctions are already making everyday life more difficult for Venezuelans. Like this pensioner, Luis Moreno arrives home with a box of groceries. It's the monthly delivery from the local food committee. Beans, rice, tuna, milk. For more than 6 million Venezuelans facing absurdly high prices, this has become a lifeline. But it's not enough. So Luis has begun to grow more beans for himself on his roof.
I choose seeds from the beans in the food parcel. I sow them, and that gives me between 1 kilo and 1.5 kilos of beans. That way we get used to producing our own food. Some plant beans, some plant tomatoes, other peppers, and then we can exchange them with our neighbors.
If he planted the whole 1 kilo bag, he says he could get 50 kilos of beans, but he doesn't have the space. Still, it's a start.
I don't expect a miracle, I expect solutions in the medium and long term, because a miracle will only come from ourselves, all together.
A couple of 100 meters down the road, in this historic neighborhood of La Pastora, the parish cultural center is holding a cooking class, with a difference. They are relearning to cook with what they can get their hands on.
If we don't have flour, we make arepas with carrots. That's what this alternative cookery is teaching us, and we work with vegetables which we hardly used before, and they are full of vitamins.
It is their answer to what everyone here calls the economic war, which they blame on the large-scale food importers, processors and distributors, as well as the sanctions.
The big businessmen are the ones to blame for all this, because they are turning off the supply to all of us. And we won't allow that, because we are the children of Simón Bolívar.
For Yulema, who's running this class, it could even be an opportunity to improve people's diet.
This is for the long term, because if we make a habit of this, we will have these recipes forever, and they are healthy, GM-free and not industrialized.
The government says sanctions will make life even more difficult, but these Venezuelans insist they will survive. Ian Bruce, Telesur, Caracas.
We'll take a short break now, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Nicaragua mourns Cardinal Emeritus Miguel Obando y Bravo, an outspoken defender of human rights and one of the main supporters of the Sandinistas in their struggle to topple the Somoza dictatorship. Obando y Bravo died at the age of 92. He was an influential mediator and helped Nicaragua solve very much conflicts. For example, he helped mediate the ceasefire talks between Daniel Ortega's government and the Contras during the 1980s Guatemalan civil war that took 30,000 lives. The cardinal was a key ally for Ortega's government. His death came while his country is once again in the middle of a serious political crisis. In the Nicaraguan city of Masaya, protests have escalated into a pitched battle between riot police and protesters. Parapet walls, barricades made of stones, tree branches, and barbed wire were seen on almost every block across the city. The old market of Masaya has been devastated by fires. Police in Mexico are investigating the deaths of 2 more political candidates after their bodies and those of their companions were found on Saturday morning. Candidate for Juchitan's council, Pamela Terán Pineda, together with her driver and photographer, were shot dead after leaving a restaurant. Legislative candidate Juana Maldonado and City Public Health, Environment and Education Councilor Erika Casares were found dead after the pair had completed a campaign visit to Jopala. At least 105 electoral candidates or people involved in their campaigns have been murdered since September, according to Mexico's National Police. 80 other candidates have withdrawn the race due to violence. A national council also said that more than 370 politicians have been victims of threats, aggressions, and acts of intimidation. These elections will be held on July 1st. And with a little less than a month until the presidential election in Mexico, social organizations are demanding candidates speak publicly about their agenda for the environment.
León Fierro is an activist of the movement Mexicali Resiste, dedicated to the defense of water resources in the Baja California state. He was imprisoned in May 27 for participating in protests against granting water resources to a U.S. brewery company. The local government intended to grant 20 million cubic meters of water per year to the Constellation Brands firm.
50 degrees Celsius, and the only thing that allows us to stand the heat is the Colorado River. It is the only thing that keeps us alive. Yet every year there is less water.
Social pressure stopped from passing a bill that granted permission for hydrical resources exploitation and ordered a construction of a pipeline with public money to bring water to the company.
It is totally regrettable, but enough is enough. This water management should not continue in the hands of private companies and corrupt authorities who receive economic benefits for participating in this.
Environmental organizations regret that the presidential candidates have not presented environmental proposals and to protect environmental activists' rights. In less than a year, 30 activists have been killed across Mexico.
Environmental activists who protect water resources are being persecuted. Social movements are fighting to obtain agreements with the state to support and protect environmentalists.
Sustainable development and climate change are part of the topics that will be addressed on June 12, in the third and last debate between the presidential candidates, who will also discuss the economic growth, poverty, and education in the country.
Now to Argentina, where hundreds of activists gather on Sunday to support the bill on abortion rights currently being discussed in Congress. A group of popular actresses joined the demonstrators who are asking for free and safe access to abortion. The women used green scarves as a symbol of the safe abortion movement. The lower house is due to vote on the bill on June 13. 30 legislators have not yet said how they will vote, and the others are split in equal numbers for and against the bill.
In the first place, women have to be free and have to be able to decide because they have autonomy over their own bodies.
Hundreds of thousands of revelers flooded Sao Paulo's Avenida Paulista for the 22nd annual Sao Paulo Gay Pride Parade. This year, activists demanded rights for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex communities with the slogan, "Power for LGBTI, our vote, our voice." The parade is considered the largest gay pride parade in the world. The International Monetary Fund says it will be sending a delegation to Barbados on Tuesday to assist the island in its plans for revitalizing the economy. Prime Minister Mia Mottley has already indicated that her administration would not be averse to seeking support from the Washington-based financial institution. We'll take one last short break, but join us after this video from our multimedia team. Welcome back. At least 48 migrants have drowned in the Mediterranean Sea off Tunisia's coast. It is one of the worst migrant boat accidents in recent years. More than 60 migrants were rescued by the Navy near the southern island of Kerkena. Most of the victims were Tunisians and North Africans. Authorities said there were around 180 people crammed into a boat trying to cross the sea to reach Europe. Human traffickers have increasingly used Tunisia as a launchpad for migrants heading to European countries. The incident coincides with a visit by Italian far-right leader and newly appointed Interior Minister Matteo Salvini to Sicily, where he emphasized that Italy will no longer be Europe's refugee camp.
Water was coming into the boat. Those who could escape fled. Others drowned. We stayed there until almost 5 a.m. Then fishermen came to help us, and then the army arrived.
A suicide bomb has killed 8 people in Kabul. Here's more on that and other stories making headlines around the world.
At least 8 people have been killed in a suicide attack in the Afghan capital, Kabul. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. The bomb exploded near a residential area where more than 2,000 religious scholars from across the country gathered to denounce terrorism. They plan to issue a religious order demanding Taliban militants to restore peace, which would allow foreign troops to leave the country. The security in Afghanistan has recently deteriorated and concerns have grown ahead of the parliamentary and district council elections due in October. Thousands of people in Jordan's capital, Amman, have been protesting for 5 consecutive days against a new income bill aimed at widening the tax base, increasing the tax brackets, and penalizing tax evaders. Protests started after trade unions rejected the bill, calling on the government to withdraw it and announcing a general strike.
We are living in the most expensive Arabic capital. It is ranked 28th internationally. We as citizens cannot pay more money to the government, and the new tax law is not just affecting the high-income earners, but also the citizens with low and middle incomes.
A right-wing anti-immigration party has won Slovenia's parliamentary elections. The FtS won 25 of the 90 seats. The party is led by former Prime Minister Janez Janša, who has been a vocal supporter of Hungary's nationalist Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. SDS argues that money spent on migrants would be better used for the country's security forces.
The Palestine Football Association chief has called on fans to burn the shirt and the picture of Argentinian super striker Lionel Messi if he plays against Israel in Jerusalem this weekend. The match was originally set to be played in Haifa, but Israeli authorities contributed funding for it to be changed to Jerusalem, a move which has upset Palestinians even further. This follows the decision by US President Donald Trump to recognize the city as Israel's capital and move the US embassy there last month. And as the FIFA World Cup in Russia is right around the corner, it continues its tradition and has already found its fortune teller this year. Achilles the cat, who lives in St. Petersburg Hermitage Museum, is being trained as a psychic who will predict the winners of the tournament. This tournament is kicking off in Russia in less than 2 weeks. For his training, Achilles, dressed in a red soccer jersey, looks at a chart of the teams and game schedules. He will make his predictions by choosing between 2 bowls of food, each bearing a team flag. Achilles has some big shoes or tentacles to fill. His predecessor was Paul the Octopus, who became an international celebrity at the 2010 World Cup when he picked the winner, Spain. And with that story, we come to the end of this news brief. But this and other stories you can find on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And be sure to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.